What's up, YouTube? It's your boy John from Project Ellsworth, and I am with you today to give you another Top 20 for 2020. That is the horror movie series that was created by Joe the Horror Man and Jason from Horrific Nightmares. This month we are doing Top 20 70s movies. This one was difficult for me, simply because there are not very many 70s movies that I would call favorites. I actually only came up with 19 on my original list. So after I came up with the 19, I had to throw a second entry from the same franchise into my list, so I cheated on one of them in here, guys. My apologies. All right, so let's go. Let's see what we got. Coming in at number 20, we have Blood-Sucking Freaks. This movie is about a theater macabre live show that this guy puts on in front of an audience. It is like murder and torture. What the audience does not know is that the murder and torture is actually real. So Blood-Sucking Freaks comes in at number 20. That's 1976, by the way. All right, next up is 1979, When a Stranger Calls. Believe it or not, I don't own the original When a Stranger Calls. I do have the remake, but I don't own the original, so I'll put the picture right here. That's the story. Everybody knows this story in the horror community. Woman's getting phone calls telling her to check the children. She calls the cops. The cops trace the call, tell her that the call is coming from within her house. Really good movie, creepy stuff. Coming in at number 18 is 1979's The Amityville Horror. I am not the biggest fan of this movie. That's why it's so low on my list. My assumption is that this movie is going to be a lot higher on other people's lists. James Brolin, Margot Kidder. Good movie, not a great movie in my opinion. I actually thoroughly enjoyed the remake of this movie, but I wasn't crazy about this one. Like I said, I had a hard time putting this list together. There are movies on this list that I'm absolutely not crazy about, and there's others on this list that are completely legendary in my mind, and in your mind too, probably. All right, next up is 1972's The Last House on the Left. This is another example of a movie that I actually think I like the remake more than I like the original. I do like this movie. This movie was a tough watch for its time, I'm sure. 1972, I was 1, so needless to say, it had been around a while by the time I got to it. It's a Wes Craven movie, definitely the movie that put his name on the map. Tough watch, tough subject matter, good movie. All right, next up is the only other movie on my list that I do not own, so I'll put the picture right here, is 1977's Orca. Orca's a cool movie. I'm actually kind of surprised that I don't have that. I don't know that I've ever seen it in a store to buy, and it's not something that I would seek out online. I might now, but I wouldn't have seeked that out online. Orca's the story of a whale hunter. He actually hunts and kills a female pregnant killer whale, gets her up on his boat, and a baby falls out of the dead whale. And when the baby falls out of the dead whale, the male whale, the father, is in the water, sees what happens, and then seeks revenge on the hunter. Very far-fetched, to say the least, but it was a good movie. All right, next on my list at number 15 is 1976, The Omen. The Omen's cool. I haven't seen it in a really long time, but The Omen's a pretty cool movie. Creepy-ass kid in that movie. Couple really good scenes in there when the woman hangs herself and when the dude gets decapitated. Good flick. They remade that movie. It's been quite a few years now, and I wasn't nuts about the remake. I do enjoy the original. All right, number 14. Coming in at number 14 is 1978's The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is really cool. Donald Sutherland, Leonard Nimoy, aliens basically cloning humans. Good flick, very creepy flick. Haven't seen that one in a while. Probably about a year and a half ago I watched that. I think I watched it with my son. Good movie. All right, coming in at number 13 is 1977's Suspiria. Excuse me. Basically about a dance studio and witches. Dario Argento's made a lot of great movies. I've mentioned in several of my videos that I love old Italian movies. And this is just another example of an old Italian horror movie that I like. All right, next up is coming in at number 12 is 1977's The Hills Have Eyes. There's a lot of people out there who actually like the remake of this movie more than the original, and I'm kind of on the fence. I love the original. I thoroughly enjoyed the remake. I did reviews on my channel of both of them, and it's really hard for me to pick one or the other. It's another Wes Craven movie. Wes Craven, absolutely legend. Rest in peace. Good movie. I mean, what more can you say? Mountain men, cannibal dudes. It's a great movie. Check it out. Coming in at number 11 is 1979's made-for-TV movie, Salem's Lot. This is a Stephen King adaptation. I thought it was very well made, very creepy. Tell me that dude right there ain't creepy? Of course he is. He looks like Nosferatu. Good stuff, good movie. I picked this steel book up last year around Halloween at Best Buy. Nice piece, nice box. Good movie, it's a vampire movie. I'm not the biggest vampire movie fan in the world either, a horror movie fan that doesn't love vampire movies. There's a few of them that are spectacular, and I really enjoyed that one. All right, like I said earlier, there's one franchise that I had 2 entries in this list because I only came up with 19 movies that I really liked as standalone. So coming in at number 10 is Jaws 2. I love Jaws 2. I don't like it as much as the original, so obviously you know that's coming up. But this movie I thought was fantastic. After this one, they took a quick dive for me, this franchise did. But this movie is absolutely fantastic. Now, he's out there, he's got the kids out on like an old lighthouse island, and he's got to kill the shark with an underwater electric wire. It's fantastic. Awesome movie. Was that a lighthouse? No, I can't even remember if that was a lighthouse or if it was like a rock quarry. It was like an electrical center. All right, coming in at number 9 is 1979's Zombie. In the U.S., this is better known as Zombie 2. Very good movie. I actually own an upgraded copy of this movie. I don't know why I chose this one for this video. This is an awesome movie. Guilty pleasure, old Italian zombie movies. These are the things that I love. I love these movies. I have a bunch of them, and I absolutely love that one. Coming in at number 8 is George Romero's masterpiece, 1978's Dawn of the Dead. This, I think, is overwhelmingly the favorite George Romero movie for most people. I prefer Day of the Dead, but I love Dawn of the Dead. This is a great, great movie. This is an awesome collection. There is a ton of stuff inside of this. If you haven't seen it or you don't own it, find this thing and check it out. There's a ton of great stuff in here. Zombies, overwhelmed, or people hiding out in a mall, being overrun by zombies. It's awesome. If you play video games, one has to assume that the Dead Rising series got their whole idea from Dawn of the Dead. Awesome. All right, coming in at number 7 is Alien. Ridley Scott. Awesome movie, scary movie, dark as could be. Absolutely legendary, important sci-fi / horror movie. This is Mark of Horrors. I bet you this is going to be number 1 on Mark's list, I have to assume. I'd be very surprised if it isn't. I haven't seen his video yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Excellent movie. Sigourney Weaver's in this. This is the movie that gave us Sigourney Weaver, to my knowledge. Awesome, scary, scary movie. All right, next up is 1975's Jaws. This movie I remember seeing at a very young age, and this thing scared me to the point I remember so vividly sitting in the living room watching this movie with my mom and dad on regular network television, so I have to assume that it was probably 77 or 78 that it was put on television, and I was afraid to go to the bathroom. This movie scared me to death when I was a kid. I love Jaws. I've never met anybody anywhere ever that doesn't love this movie, and for good reason. This movie's legendary. All right, next up, hold on, dry throat. Bear with me. Coming in at number 5 is 1976 Carrie. I don't know how many movies have ever been made that the star of the movie was better cast than Sissy Spacek was in Carrie. This movie was absolutely phenomenal. This may be my favorite Stephen King adaptation. I absolutely love Carrie. This is another movie that I've been watching most of my life on a very regular basis. I've owned it on every format that there has been. I remember watching this movie and the next movie on my list. I'll get to that in 1 second. There was a guy across the street from my mother and father who had an old Betamax player. At the time, it was a new Betamax player, and he had a bunch of movies on there. Carrie was one of them, and that movie scared me to death. I still think it's creepy. They remade Carrie, and I didn't mind that movie, but it doesn't even hold a candle to the original movie. The other movie that I watched over there was Phantasm. This movie quite possibly could be considered the movie that created the horror fan that I am today. This movie scared me to death. When this version came out, I loved it too. This is a beautiful copy of this movie, if you haven't seen it. The tall man, the little nomad-looking dudes that are supposed to be slaves, the sphere, everything about this movie is just weird and creepy and just a strange undertone to the whole thing. Very sci-fi, very horror. I absolutely positively love Phantasm. On my own personal top 10 list, I would probably say this is 11, battling for 10. Every time I make a list, it seems like something edges this out, but this is always right there. If there was an honorable mention for me, it would be Phantasm. Sincerely, in my heart, this is probably in my top 10 because of how important this movie is to me. Absolutely love Phantasm. I just watched it the other day again. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen Phantasm. It's such a fantastic movie. I gave a shout out to Cody at H&S Collectibles on a video that I just recorded a few minutes ago, and I know that he's also a big Phantasm movie fan of Phantasm. And Phantasm is actually the movie that brought me and him together. He saw my review on YouTube, and he made a comment. I replied back to him. We started watching each other's channels, and now we're buddies. Awesome. Phantasm's great, and now Phantasm has made me a friend. Okay, coming in at number 3 is 1974's Tobe Hooper classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If there were a Mount Rushmore of horror movies, this guy's face may be the first one carved into it, if not Norman Bates, Leatherface. This movie's fantastic. I love everything about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Very simple premise, very simple story, very great story, very great movie. It was shot in just absolutely dreadful conditions. They were talking about the heat was just unbearable, the smell was unbearable. People are wearing the same clothes day after day after day. Just the smell and the stink and the heat it was just a miserable situation. And thankfully, they got a legendary movie out of that situation. I absolutely love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All right, coming in at number 2 is 1973's The Exorcist. In my opinion, this is the scariest movie that has ever been made. I know that that's very wide opinion. A lot of people feel that way, but surprisingly, there's a lot of people who don't feel that way. I remember watching this movie when I was pretty darn young, and this movie just scared me to death. And now I'm 48 years old. I have a 12-year-old son, and when he was probably 10 or 11, I let him watch The Exorcist with me. I made him cover his eyes and so forth a couple different times in this movie, and distracted him a few other times. But he kept hearing me talk about this movie, and he finally said he wanted to watch it. So, probably against my better judgment, I let him watch it. Pardon me. And it didn't scare him. He didn't think it was scary. This movie scared me to death when I was his age. Absolutely, positively love The Exorcist. I've met Linda Blair. She's about that big. You know, I took a picture with her. I actually met Linda Blair at a Metallica concert of all places. Great movie. Absolutely legendary. For me, the scariest movie that's ever been made. All right, and coming in at number 1, if you know me in any way whatsoever, this will not surprise you. 1978's Halloween. I love Michael Myers. I love John Carpenter. I love Jamie Lee Curtis. This movie is the perfect horror movie for me. I've seen it countless times. I'm sure I'll see it countless more. I mean, what else can I say? This movie means everything to me. I absolutely, positively love everything about this movie. There's nothing that I don't like about it. The only thing that I wish is I could have been old enough to see this in the movie theater. That had to be just the coolest thing in the world. But I love the shape. I love the feel of the movie. John Carpenter's work in general is just wonderful. He's made some good movies. The Thing is one of the greatest horror movies that's ever been created, period. Just the stuff that John Carpenter comes up with is just fantastic. All right, that's my list. That's my top 20 70s movies. What are your favorite 70s movies? Leave me some comments down below and let's talk about it. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you really like the video and you've been enjoying my content, please do me a huge personal favor. Click that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Have a kick-ass day. And thank you for watching. Take care, everybody.